examples we learned like keyboard events and mouse events and clipboard events. These are some events we learned. We have button events. So actually button events, some button events like on click is a button event. On double click is an event. On context menu, that is another button event. Button related events we have on click, on double click, and on context menu. We already know this, so just I given a simple point about them. Already we used on click. Actually, in JavaScript, you don't have like double click. There you will use a DBL click. DBL click is the event. Context menu means right click, right? So on click, double click, and context menu, these are button related events. So generally, for example, already we know click, some another option here. So we are using an image. So what is the concept? Suppose here I given some heading. This is a right click not allowed. So this is actually right click not allowed. So we don't want right click to work in this page, but right click is currently working in the page. So how you disable right click? So what you have to do, generally right click is considered as context menu. So what you have to do, we have to write a function handle context menu. In that we have to use document dot on context menu is equal to function. This function should return what? False. If you want, you can keep an alert saying that right click not allowed. This message we can give. We want this to perform on this container. So on context menu, so handle context menu. So this is nothing but disabling right click in the app. This is a very popular requirement because when we are developing some secured apps, we don't want anybody to right click and copy the contents. So then we can simply define this option. Now what happens? If anybody tries to right click, it will alert the page and show. So right click not allowed. And you click on OK. Now you can see there is no right click working here. So we are not allowing right click inside the page. That you can do by using what? Context menu. Context menu. So this is the another option. This is another example for that. Context menu means right click. So on click, this is actually left button, single click. Double click is left button, double click. And right button, single click. That's what actually context menu. You also have another option like on select start. So while selecting any content in page. While selecting any content in page, that is on select start. So that is on click, on double click, context menu, and this. Right. So that is the point. So now next important is, this is just example. As I told you, I am not giving all examples to you. All I am just giving one point because all these are general JavaScript events. Just to make you understand about this. Already you learned in JavaScript all this. One small example I am giving here. Next, another category we are having. What are another category of events? We have element state events. Element state events. What are element state events? In JavaScript, what element state events you have used, like what? On focus, like on blur, like what? On change. These are element state events. On focus, on blur, on change. These are element state events. So element state events are these, and you know them. Focus means when user clicks inside a element that gets highlight, that is what we call as focus. Blur means when it will lose the focus. When it lose the focus, we call blur. And on change we already used for two-way binding, and everywhere we used on change, right? So we have focus, we have blur, and we have change. So these are general events, and already we used in so many places the change event. You can try one complex example. For example, suppose this is some HDFC bank. In this HDFC bank website, so here we are having some EMI calculator, personal loan EMI calculator, like this. Now in this, the loan EMI calculator, you can see this is a EMI calculator. In this EMI calculator, I am sliding the slider, and it will show the amount you need. I am sliding the slider, it will show the years. That means on change. And interest rate, it will select. These are all on change. That is one element state event. And when user clicks on calculate, it should calculate the amount that they have to pay, and it should display here. Like monthly EMI will be how much. This is a simple example for on change, how we can handle on change. You can design this already. Our JavaScript people know this. They already learned this kind of design and functionalities in general JavaScript. You can replicate the same in here also. Actual, our JavaScript examples In JavaScript, if you tried such EMI calculator, for example, let's say by using the events like change, online shopping, something is there. Yeah. Online shopping, Flipkart shopping. So in this JavaScript examples, you have EMI. This is generally in our JavaScript people have learned this. So this is EMI calculator. That means that is the EMI calculator designed with events. All are on change events only. Yeah? Here all the events are on change. So we have amount change, year change, rate change. These are all on change. And this is the calculator. So that means user can select the loan amount, user can select the years, interest rate, and click on calculate. It should get that and display. That's a general thing. You done these type of things in JavaScript, you can just replicate here. Same concepts you can try here. Let's see one small overview for this. So how do you design? Here, what are the actions? Here, all these actions are what? On change. And here action is what? On click. On click. Let's see how we can do this. So I am creating a simple EMI calculator. So let's see how we can design EMI calculator. So we will use the concept here is, yeah. So here we are designing a class row. In this we are having so div, the class call. So we have 3 columns. Okay, this is container fluid, and I given some padding 4 and BG secondary. So that is what we are giving. And inside this, so we will add a div, and this we will have like BG light. Okay. Now in the row, we are giving amount you need. Amount you need. And here I will just keep in a text box. Input type is equal to text. Okay, next for years, for input type is text and years. I'll just keep size as some 4. Okay, interest rate, interest rate. We have input type is text, and here we are defining. So this is actually number, and above also we can keep as number. So, and in this minimum is equal to some 10.45, maximum is 18.45, and value is 10.45, and actually this value can change. Later we will put the value, and we will keep step, step value for numbers, 0.01. That is one row we are having. This is the row padding 4. Okay, this is at the top. We have amount you need for years. So this I will give size as 16. That's a small one. And this is size not required. We just give min is equal to 1. Max is equal to 5. Then it will be years. Okay, interest rate, how much percent? Percent symbol we will add there. That is the percent. Now below this, we will add another row. So we will keep another row, class as row. And in this row, again, 3 columns are there. So div class as call. So we have 3 columns here. So class as call. In this, we have a slider starting with suppose 10,000 is the value we given. And 10,000 or 1 lakh, we will give like, yeah. So, and here we have a input type is range. We are using a range. Okay. Now, suppose some 5 lakh, that is the value we are giving. Similarly, here we have one input type is range and 5. Interest rate is 10.45%. So, and input type is range, and here 18.45%. This row is having margin top for some gap. This is another one we are having. So the values for range we know. Min is equal to 1 lakh, and max is equal to 5 lakh, right? And value is equal to some 1 lakh. Okay. So similarly, min is 1, max is 5, value is 1. Value is 1. Same, min is 10.45. So max is also 18.45. Value is, so this value we will not put a standard one, we will change. So value is 10.45. Later we have to change that value, otherwise you cannot move the sliders, right? Okay, so this is the second one. Now we will add one more row. So we will have a div. So the class name is row and padding 4 and margin top. The div we have a class as call, and the button is calculate. So class BTN and BTN primary. And here I say some text end. Okay. And we have a calculate button here. Now, when I click on that, it should calculate and display the amount. So here, first thing what we need to implement when user is moving the slider, that value should display in the text. The years, interest rate, everything. So here I click and I am trying to move. It is not moving. The sliders are not changing. So why these sliders are not changing? Because you know the concept. To change the slider, because React supports only one way binding, you have to implement two way. Okay, so what do you write? So we will put here a constant. We will put a constant, that is amount, set amount, and use state. The amount is having, suppose, 1 lakh. That is the amount. That is the starting value here. And we have another, that is years, set years. So use state, and it is starting with 1. Next constant is interest, set interest. So is equal to use state. It is starting with 10.45. Okay. Now we need to bind this to these text boxes. That means the text box will have a value. Value comes from where? Amount. Here also the value comes from, so value comes from years. Year, we given year. Years, huh? Okay. Then I will give years. Next here we will get the value from interest. Interest will get the value. Those values are by default available there. Now how do you control them? So we need a function handle amount change, E. So set amount E dot target dot value, and function handle year change. Year change. So we have set years, that is E dot target dot value. Okay, next we need a function rate change. So handle rate change, E. Set rate, set interest E dot target dot value. These need to work when user is changing. Right here in the slider, we have to write. So this slider on change. So on change handle, which one? Amount change. Amount change. Here on change. On change, which one? Handle year change. And this one on change. This is what handle rate change. Okay. Now, when I run this here, the amount change, this value is not changing. Slider is not changing because slider is having a fixed value. This you have to change. This is not a fixed value. Huh? The slider is not having any fixed value. We will change because now we get the value dynamically. Now you see here when I am moving, then it will get the value and show. Now what should happen when user clicks on calculate? It should calculate the amount and show. So that is a general JavaScript calculation you do. So what you have to do now? So you need to write here constant we have, that is uh, installment. So set installment and is equal to use state. It is a number. Installment amount is currently empty. So how do you calculate the installment amount? Function handle calculate click. right? So on calculate click, how do you calculate the installment amount? So first where we need to get the amount. So that means here we are calculating EMI. But before EMI, some other values you need to calculate. P. P is principal amount. Principal amount is nothing but amount. Whatever amount they are selecting, we will collect it. That is principal amount. Okay. Another one is N. N is number of periods. Number of periods, how much? We have years. Years into 12. 12. That is number of years. Because we have to calculate for every month. And what about R? R is interest rate. Interest rate is how much? Interest. Interest is a percentage by 12 by 100. You know how to convert interest into normal numeric value, right? Percentage into value. Okay. Now, what is that EMI? How do you calculate the EMI? P, principal amount into. What is the formula for this? You know the EMI formulas, huh? Generally, EMI formula, you see, the EMI formula is this. The EMI formula. Actually, the EMI formula is this. This is the EMI formula. Now, you already learned in JavaScript how to convert these mathematical formulas into JavaScript understandable formulas. In JavaScript, you learned now how to convert this into normal understandable formula of JavaScript. How do you translate this? P into R into 1 plus R to the power of N. How you calculate that? I'll close this. Yeah. How do you calculate that? So P into R, R into, so 1 plus R to the power of N. So that means what you have to do? So math dot what? Power. Math dot power. How much? 1 plus R. 1 plus R to the power of N. That's how you do. After that, slash divided by again math dot power. So math dot power. So what is the formula? 1 plus R to the power of N. So N and minus 1. That's how we do. And set amount. Set amount, not set amount, set installment. Set installment is what? EMI. This value you do. And we will put the message here. That means somewhere at the bottom, we will have a div class as row, padding 4, margin 4, margin top 4 or 3. Yeah. Here we will put a div and class as call. So here I am just giving your installment amount. So I will just keep a bold, and here we will put the installment dot to local string. To local string, we will put an EN. So we have a style. Style is what? Currency, and we put a currency as INR. So this is the amount that I just given some point there. Okay. Now this should work on calculate button click. So on click is what? Handle calculate click. That's how generally we use events anywhere. So anywhere we have to use the events in the same way. So I am selecting here the amount you need. I'm selecting the number of years. I'm selecting the interest rate and click on calculate. It should get that and show how much they need to pay that month. These are general basic concept of implementation of your JavaScript techniques here. So this is another example. I just given an example of an EMI calculator. These all things nobody teaches you in React, right? All websites build their widgets using React only, but nobody teaches you all these in React because these are all general JavaScript, right? Your JavaScript will teach you all these formulas, functions, calculations, events also. Only the point, replace them with your React, change them into your React, all the same logic functionalities and all, right? So have you seen, have you gone through any YouTube channels anywhere? You try once, you see React related events and all. Everyone will explain up to the part of event handlers, event listeners, event arguments. Nobody will explain you mouse events, keyboard events, button events and all in React especially, because that's not a topic at all. That is a general concept of JavaScript. You implement same as it is here in React. Events nobody need to teach you. You already learned them. Just you implement with the changes that you have to make according to React. Event arguments and all, how do you pass in React? So this is another simple example of how we can use the events. So in this, we have used some change events and all. Okay. Next, important in the event categories, we have form events. I hope you already know what are form events. On submit, another one is on reset. We have the form events called on submit and on reset. Generally, where we define, so syntactically, they are written for form element on submit and on reset. These are defined for form and they are applied by using the buttons. We need button type as submit and we need another one. And another button type is what? Reset. So like cancel. So already I showed you in our previous event handling mechanism how to prevent default. I showed you already on submit. On submit, we discussed 2 points: stop propagation. Another one is prevent default. We saw that prevent default here. Right. So that is general option here. So these we will use very much while working with APIs. When we are learning end-to-end integration, we will learn how to submit a form data to server and all. We will have a separate session on forms. When we have a separate session on forms, we can handle them. We will learn about them. So separate session on forms means how to use third-party forms, how to submit the form data to server and all. So these are related to form events. Next, another important category, we are having timer events. Timer events. Another important category is timer events. So these also, I think, what are the timer events of JavaScript? So we have set timeout, set interval, clear timeout, set interval. Another one is what? Clear interval. These are general timer related options. And you already learned in JavaScript why to use timeout. To control one technical concept. What is it? Debouncing. right? So event debouncing mechanism, right? You already learned in JavaScript how to handle debouncing. What is debouncing in JavaScript? Uh, Debouncing is a mechanism which will not allow the task to immediately execute. So it will keep the task sleep for a specific duration of the time and it will release into memory. That's what we call as debounce, right? Actually, in React interviews also, they ask these questions because in general JavaScript, these are very popular, right? So every JavaScript learner knows about debouncing and how to control it. And usually why you need debouncing? Because user will give a task immediately to system, but the task should not execute immediately. He will give the task immediate, but it should not execute immediate. It should delay the task. That is done by using what? Timer events. These are all JavaScript timer functions, but here one new concept you will understand. Let's see. That means in React, you have some new concept for handling this at a higher level. For example, see, what is that new thing you will understand here? What is the concept of timeout? Actually, set a timeout. So it is used to control the bounce. So bounce mechanism. So you can configure debounce technique. You can configure debounce technique for any task performed in process. For any task performed in process, you can configure that, right? So it is used to control the bounce mechanism. So you can configure debounce technique for any task performed in the process. So that is timeout. Let's see how this works here. Here, what is new thing you have to learn, I will show you. Because already you know this, right? So how we have to use this in a React environment with some new technique is there. Generally, for example, you see here, so we will take another component. This is timeout demo. Okay. So timeout demo.jsx. So here export function timeout demo. So we will return a simple container fluid. Suppose I am just writing some option. So I will use a button, show some tips, something like that. So, and here we will put some paragraph or heading. So class text center. Okay. So in this, we have a class BTN and BTN primary. We will keep the timeout demo in the startup. Okay. Now that is the timeout demo we have. When I click on show tips, I want some messages to come one after another. One after another, some messages to display. So we will create three functions. So we will have a function. So message one. So or just I say tip one. Okay. And this tip one, and we will have some constant message set message is equal to use state. It is an empty string. Tip one will set message as so JSX must be enclosed in one container. That is one tip we are giving. Must be enclosed in one container. Okay. Another function, tip two. And here I'm just giving some message. So set message tip to JSX can use only properties. So that is one option. Next function tip three. In that, so here I will just give one colon. This is like two colon. And set message, we have so three colon. And here, so every JSX element must have end token. So or self-ending. These are some tips we are giving. On button click, these three tips must display. I want to show the message here. MSG should come in the heading. And on button click, we are writing a function handle button click. On button click, we will call all the three tips. That means tip one function, tip two function, and tip three function. That means on button click, we are calling three functions. So on click, handle button click. Okay. Now see what happens here is when I click show tips, three tips have to execute. And you can see only the last one will come. Only the last tip is coming. So what about first and second? Have they executed? They executed. Then why I cannot see them? Because the execution is so fast that it make you feel like it is overwritten. Actually, before it is overwriting, it executed one. After that, in the place of one, it replaced second. After that, it replaced third. But the processor time is so fast that you can't catch that. You can't see with your general naked eyes, right? You can't do that. So you know this how to control in JavaScript. In JavaScript, you will generally face this problem everywhere. Then this is what we call it as what? Bounce. Actual in electronic device in JavaScript, we learned. Suppose you are using a remote control, TV remote control. You are increasing the volume. And generally, you know, the point is currently, suppose you have typewriter and a keyboard. These are different. Generally, what you people do, you people call like you say that I am typing from a keyboard. Generally, keyboards don't type. Keyboards don't type. You are using a wrong sentence. Keyboards use the word called key in. What is difference between typing and keying in? Keyboard don't type. keyboards always key in. What is difference between keyboard and typewriter is, in typewriter what happens, you press a key, then it will type that key. After that it stops. But in keyboard it is not like that. You press a key, don't release it. What will happen? It will repeat that again and again. That is what we call as keying in. It is not typing. So while working with keyboards, what is the problem we will face is, you take in a TV remote. In that volume up button is there. You pressed volume up button and you just made a little delay in releasing the button. Then it will go to 0 to 100 in 1 second. You say minus button, it will come 100 to 0. That means you can't control. That is the reason the person who designed the remote, he will use a debouncing mechanism. He will write a debouncing logic in that electronic device. What is the debouncing logic? Even the user hold down the button, the task will not execute immediately. It will take some time. That is what we call as debounce. That's what you have to control here. That means now what we have to do, even user executes all at a time, they should not execute immediately. For every task, we need to set some time. That means generally what happens is, usual concept I will tell. So generally what is the concept here is, we have the tasks. We have the task, like we have task 1, task 2, task 3, and we have memory. Usually we have the memory, and we have the process. Memory and the process. We usually have the process. So the memory and the process. So we have the process and memory. Now generally what happens is, so the task 1 is loaded into memory. Task 2 also loaded into memory. Task 3 also loaded into memory. When you click the button, all these tasks are loaded into memory. After that, task 1 is released into process. After that, task 2 is released into process. Now, this speed of releasing them into process will be so fast that you can't see the gap. You can't identify the gap. That is the reason you feel like only last message is displayed. Then what generally we do is, when we load the task into memory, we can lock these two tasks. For few seconds, few minutes, we can lock them. That means when task 1 goes, task 2 and 3 are locked. They are kept inactive for some time. When task 1 finished, it went out of the process. Now after few seconds, we release task 2. Then user can clearly watch every task performed. Otherwise, it will be so fast that you can't notice. But actually, all 3 tasks are working. Now, what is our job is to make the task inactive for some time. Generally, we call make the thread sleep for some time. How do you do that? That means these 3 tips are released into memory. From the memory, they are released into process immediately. No, we don't want like that. What we will do now is, we will use set timeout. Set timeout is asking a function. Which function you want to execute? Tip 1 function I want to execute. How much time you want to keep it in the memory? So I want to keep it in the memory for 3000 milliseconds. That means for 3 seconds, it will be in the memory. After that, it is released into process. So immediately it is not released into process. Even you click the button, immediately the task is not performed. It will wait for 3 seconds. After that, set timeout for tip 2, and this will be released after 5000 milliseconds. That means the time difference between the first and second is 2 seconds. 2 seconds. That means, remember, all three are loaded at a time. But first one will be released in 3 seconds, second one will be released in 5 seconds. What does that means? The difference between first and second is 2. You can control that also. We have set timeout. We will give tip what? 3. Tip 3, and we will keep as 10,000 milliseconds. That means there will be more time for the third message. Now let's run this and see. I will refresh and let's run this and see. Show tips. Now, after 3 seconds, the first message will come. After few seconds, second message will come. After that, third message will come. That is how we can control. Earlier also the same thing working. Earlier also same thing working, but it is so fast, so you cannot see it. Then you usually feel like it is overwriting and it is displaying only last message. But actually it is doing this. But now we have delayed the process. This mechanism is what? Debounce. It's a general JavaScript debounce technique. Here we just implemented in a React screen, right? And the key point now is, once these tasks are loaded into memory, before they're released into process, you can delete from memory. Before they are released into process, you can delete them from the memory. That is what we call as clear. Clear, clear timeout. Clear timeout. We can remove from the memory. But here, generally how you done this in JavaScript is, see, how many tasks are loaded into memory? These 3 tasks are loaded into memory. That means we have a memory. In the memory, we have 3 tasks loaded. One is tip 1, another one is tip 2, another one is tip 3. Now the question is, in which memory reference tip 2 is present? In which memory reference tip 2 is present? There is no reference for that. All are loaded into memory, but they don't have any reference. Then how you will cancel them if you want? So we can't cancel them. As of now, we cannot cancel them. For that, we need a memory reference for them. That means we need to load these tasks into memory with some memory reference name. What is the advantage of that memory reference name? That memory reference name, if you have, you can delete that from the memory before it is executed. Generally, what you done to store them in a memory reference in JavaScript, to store these tasks in a memory reference in JavaScript, what you done? Generally, you use variables. Generally, we use variables. By using the variables, you store in the memory. By using the variables, you store in the memory. But tell me one point, in JavaScript, what is the job of variable? Variable allocates a memory where you can store a value and you can use the value in any expression you want. But I want memory reference in such a way that it will be best suitable for processing, not for storing any value. That means I want memory to store a process, because these 3 tasks are 3 processes. That means 3 threads, we call them as. That means how many threads are executing? 3 threads. That means how many tasks are executing? 3 tasks. Every application in graphical interface is a multi-threaded application. Multi-threaded application means it performs more than one task at a time. For example, see, usually we have a calculator. In calculator, I am doing the task like 10 plus 20. Enter. That means 10, 20, and an operator called addition, and the result 30. Now, can you tell me I'm doing which operation here? Addition. Can you tell me currently how many tasks calculator is doing? If you want to see how many tasks calculator is doing, you may think like it is doing 2 or 3 tasks, right? But let's see. Control Alt Delete. It will open Task Manager. In the Task Manager, you see here there is a details category. Details category in Task Manager. Go to details category. In that, you have the process ID, status, username, and all. Right click and select columns. In the columns list, make sure that you have selected threads. Select the threads column, and you can see now, you see the calculator. This is calculator app, and you can see the calculator app is using 20 threads. That means internally it is doing 20 tasks. And the person who built this app, he knows what the activities it may be doing in the background. For you in the foreground, it is doing 1 or 2 things, but in the background, lot of things are happening. And remember, all these 20 tasks are not required for a user to see. These are for internal maintenance, some activities. That means if you declare a variable and store anything in a variable, its intention is to render and view it output. But our intention is to store a process or a thread in the memory so that it can be used internally. We don't want to use in the output anywhere. Understood the point? We want some memory where we can store a process related task which is not meant for output, which is meant for internal process. Then we don't declare variables. So for that, actually, React have a mechanism. The mechanism is nothing but React have, we are creating, a thread. Just roughly I'm giving. And this thread, so thread 2, this is for second task. We are creating a thread 2 for second task. And this we design by using use reference hook. Use reference hook. And this use reference hook is currently null. That means, what is the meaning of null? Null means we are expecting the value at runtime. Undefined means we are expecting the value at compile time. If you are expecting a value into this at the runtime, then you have to define as what? You have to define as null. Right? You are expecting runtime, then null. Compile time, that is undefined. So, what is this use reference? It is a new hook introduced into React from 18 higher versions onwards. We use this very much. And the purpose of this is to allocate a memory in such a way that that memory is easily, fastly accessible to internal process. And it is not meant for storing a value for output. It is meant for storing any task for process. That means if you store any task related to process in the reference memory, it is very easy and fast for React to access it. That means you can use a variable also, but variables are slower when compared to the reference memories. So we have a new hook called this reference. Now what happens is, how do we assign this second task to the thread? Because what I want to do is I want to cancel the second task. If you want to cancel every task, for every task you need a reference. I want to cancel that second task, then we will store the second task in the thread memory. How to use the current thread memory? We have to access what? Thread 2. Thread 2 is a reference. It have a property called current. Current is equal to the value. That means thread 2 dot current is equal to this value. That means in the current process of the thread, it will store this one. Remember, in JavaScript, generally what people do, they declare a variable and use it. But now we don't use variables. We use what? Use reference. And what it is, we have thread 2 dot what? Current. And in that, we are configuring this. Now, what is the advantage of this? You are allocating a reference memory which is very fast and easy access to the process. A variable is not more faster like reference. Variables are slow, variables are heavy, and variables are meant for rendering output. That means they are meant for storing a value and showing it output. But these references are meant for storing any task in the process so that we can use it in the process, but we don't use it in the outputs. You can use variable also. Many times people have an habit of using variable because in older version of React, we don't have this. Then how to store the process? We used to use variables only. And we were facing problem with variables. That's the reason in the new version, they introduced a hook called use reference. I told you now in React 19 version, which is coming, they removed all these hooks. They removed all these hooks and they are introducing a new technique of writing hooks that I will tell you in the last when React 19 is coming. And in that, all these hooks are removed. They are having a different shortcut for this. I will show the process here. But technically, now the second task is stored in this memory. How to cancel it if you want any time? What we will do? We will put a button. This button we will say cancel tip 2. And we will write here class btn danger. And on click, we will say handle cancel click. Okay, let's write handle cancel click function, handle cancel click. On cancel click, what we have to do? We have to remove this from the memory. That means then we have to use a method. What is the method? Clear timeout. Clear timeout in which reference it is present. That reference name. What is the reference name? Thread 2 dot what? Current. That's how we can do. That means by using the reference hook, we can store a task in the memory and we can use the task. Earlier, we don't have this. We used to use only variables, but now we have a better performance. Better performance. And important, now what happens is, see, I am clicking on show tips. If I don't click on cancel, it will execute the first one, execute the second one, execute the third one. There is no interruption. It is working fine. But when I click on, so let's say show tips. After that, immediately I will click cancel tip 2. Then first one will come and directly third one will come. There is no second one now because I cancelled the tip 2. I cancelled it from the memory. Then directly after one, it will go and execute the third. And remember, you should cancel before it is released into process. Once it is released into process, you can't cancel it. You cannot cancel once it is released into process. If it is in the process, you can cancel. That is the problem actually, if you remembered, you learned Axios, right? You learned Axios, fetch and XML HTTP. Do you know fetch and XML HTTP cannot be cancelled once executed? They cannot be cancelled once executed. You sent into the process, it's gone. You cannot cancel at all. You cannot cancel. That means, for example, you are making a money transaction in an app. You just click the button pay. After you finish the pay and you immediately you click stop. But by the time you click stop, the payment is completed. Even you stop, disconnected, no problem. The payment is completed because on the time you click the button, immediately task executes. And once it is released into process, you can't call back. You can't cancel it. So which Axios says that you can cancel. That means Axios will not release the task immediately. It will take some time and it allows you to cancel it in it. That is one facility what they provide there. However, the concept of canceling such task from the process we manage by using clear timeout. Set timeout syntactically, how do we use that? We have set timeout and we have a function. Or you can write a function and call the function. Interval we have to use. And a clear timeout. Clear timeout. It is used to clear the task from memory before it is released into process. Before it is released into process. So it requires the reference memory where the task is loaded. It requires the reference memory where the task is loaded. So React provides use ref hook from 18x versions, which allow to create a reference memory for tasks used in process. It is faster when compared to a variable. It is faster when compared to a variable. So reference memory is meant for using value in process and not for rendering. Using value in process and not for rendering. That is the key point. So if in interviews anybody asks what is the purpose of use reference, you can simply say it is for storing a value to use in process, not for render. So syntactically, some say thread is equal to use ref and it is null. Thread dot current. You are declaring like a variable, but it is actually allocating a reference memory is equal to any value, or you can put any function. You can store a plain value also. We will see about the values in the later stage. So we have clear timeout, red dot current. That is how we do. Right. So this is one example. What is the example timeout demo? Na? Timeout demo.jsx. So this is one basic example of timeout demo, how we can control the timeout option. Now we have similar to that interval. Interval is used for performing the tasks scheduled tasks. So interval, how it works, we will see with example. Interval is nothing but, suppose you have seen carousel. You have seen a carousel. What a carousel looks like. Carousel contains some banners, and you might have observed that the banners are changing every few seconds. How? That is with the help of set interval. That means at regular time interval, you can schedule a task to perform. Every 5 seconds, it will execute. Every 10 seconds, it will execute. That you can manage by using time interval, right? We have timeout and we have time interval. That we will see in next session, how we can use the other. So few more examples are there. 1, 2 examples are there. We will finish that in the next session. Then in the next session, we will discuss about another major concept. After events, we will learn about forms. Forms in React, how to work with the forms. Few more examples are there. We will see on related to event, right? That we will continue in the next session. Monday, we will see that. Okay, right.